Let me tell you a story. A woman I once met shared how her confidence slowly eroded over time. Not because she wasn't smart, not because she wasn't capable, but because she let someone else's voice become louder than her own. That someone, a narcissist, charming, persuasive, always right, at least in their mind. They controlled the narrative, twisted her words, made her doubt herself, and she stayed. Why? Because she didn't know what to do. Here's the truth: when someone tries to control you, it's not about you. It's about them trying to fill their own emptiness by shrinking your light. And narcissists, whether they're bosses, partners, friends, or even family, thrive in environments where silence and self-doubt reign. So what do? You draw a line built on values, a line built on self-worth. You do something most people forget to do. You choose clarity over chaos. You don't argue with them. You don't try to fix them. You don't play their game, because the moment you start trying to prove yourself to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you, you've already lost. Instead, you stand your ground, you define your boundaries. You protect your peace. You say no, not with anger but with certainty. You don't fight them, you outgrow them. And when they realize they can no longer control you, they'll try to make you feel guilty. But remember, their guilt is not your responsibility. Your job is to live in alignment with your values, not their expectations. So if a narcissist ever tries to control you, do this. Walk away from manipulation and walk towards the truth. Your truth, because you don't need to control others. You just need to own yourself. Let me tell you something most people miss. When a narcissist tries to control you, it almost never starts with control. It starts with charm, it starts with praise, it starts with them making you feel like you're the most important person in the room. They know exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. They study you, not out of love or respect, but to figure out what makes you tick. What you need, what you're missing, what your insecurities are, and then they give you just enough attention, just enough validation, just enough "I see you," until one day you stop questioning the tone of their voice. You stop noticing the little digs, the subtle blame, the moments they twist reality to make you feel like you're the problem. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to second-guess yourself. That's how it happens. Confidence doesn't disappear overnight. It fades. It fades when your voice gets quieter in the presence of someone who insists theirs is the only one that matters. It fades when you start filtering your truth just to keep the peace. It fades when you begin to measure your worth based on how someone else sees you, or worse, how they want you to see yourself. And that's what narcissists do best. They build themselves up by tearing others down, but they're smart enough to do it in ways that don't look like tearing. It looks like advice, it sounds like concern, it feels like support. Until you realize it's only supportive if you agree with them. The moment you think differently, the moment you say, "I don't see it that way," the mask slips. Now it's not a conversation. It's an interrogation. "Why would you say that? Don't you trust me? I'm just trying to help you." Suddenly, it's not about the topic anymore. It's about how wrong you are for having your own perspective. And here's the dangerous part. If you don't catch it early, you start believing it. You start thinking maybe you are overreacting. Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe they're right, and you just need to try harder to see their side. But the more you try to align with their version of the world, the more disconnected you become from your own. That's the trap. Because when a narcissist can get you to doubt yourself, they don't have to control you with force. They control you with your own hesitation. And that's the ultimate power. That's how they win. Not by being stronger or louder, but by convincing you to silence yourself. So what do? You have to understand what's really happening. You have to recognize that this isn't a relationship dynamic. This is a power play. This is someone using psychological manipulation to keep you small so they can feel big. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with awareness. The moment you start to feel your confidence shrink in someone's presence, pay attention. That's your signal. When you notice yourself avoiding certain topics just to avoid their reaction, pay attention. When you start questioning your memory because they keep saying, "That's not what happened," pay attention. These are not signs that you're broken. These are signs that they're trying to break you, and you don't need to explain yourself to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to convince them that your feelings are valid. You don't need their permission to trust your own judgment again. What you need is distance, not always physical, but emotional. You need to come back to center. Reconnect with who you were before their voice got inside your head. And you need to rebuild that inner compass that says, I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I don't need anyone else to confirm that for me. Because once you stop needing their validation, their power over you disappears. You reclaim your voice, your strength, and your clarity. And that's where the real shift begins. Here's the truth. When you're dealing with a narcissist, you can't win by engaging with them on their terms. You're never going to convince them to change. You're never going to fix them or make them see things your way, no matter how hard you try. And here's the catch. The more you engage with them, the more you feed into their power. The more you try to explain, to reason, to argue, the stronger their grip becomes. Narcissists aren't interested in discussions or debates. They're not interested in hearing your point of view. They're only interested in winning. They only care about being right, and they'll do whatever it takes to make sure they come out on top. Even if that means twisting the facts or gaslighting you into believing things that aren't true. And the more you try to explain yourself, the more they'll play with your emotions, twisting your words and making you doubt your reality. It's a trap. You can spend hours, even days, trying to get a narcissist to understand your perspective. You can tell them how their actions made you feel, explain how their behavior is affecting you, and try to reach some kind of compromise. But in the end, it's never enough. Because the moment you challenge their narrative, the moment you say, I don't agree, they'll shift the conversation back to them, they'll become defensive, they'll start accusing you of misunderstanding them. They'll make you feel like the issue is all on you, and suddenly you're left questioning whether you were wrong to even speak up. That's the strategy. They use your doubt against you, turning every conversation into a battle where they're always right and you're always wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. There's value in standing your ground. There's power in having your voice heard. But you've got to recognize when it's time to stop arguing. There's a point where the conversation stops being about solving problems and starts being about control. And the moment it becomes about control, you've lost the game. This isn't about backing down. This isn't about letting them walk all over you. It's about understanding that you don't need to waste your energy trying to convince someone who isn't open to being convinced. You don't need to prove your point to someone who's already made up their mind. You don't need to keep fighting for someone's respect when they're not willing to give it to you. When you engage with a narcissist, it's like trying to reason with a brick wall. It doesn't matter how good your arguments are, how calm you stay, or how rational your reasoning is. The narcissist is never going to see things from your perspective, and the more you try, the more you'll find yourself stuck in a cycle of frustration, guilt, and confusion. You'll start to feel like you're the one who's wrong, that maybe you're being too sensitive or unreasonable. That's exactly what they want. So what do you do instead? You disengage. You don't engage in their arguments and you don't participate in their games. When a narcissist tries to pull you into a conversation where they're only looking to dominate, you walk away. You set boundaries, clear, firm, and non-negotiable, and you do it with confidence, not out of fear or anger, but because you know your worth. This doesn't mean you have to shut them out completely, but it does mean that you stop giving them the power to control your emotions. You stop feeding their need for validation and attention. You stop trying to get them to see things your way, because at the end of the day, they're not interested in seeing things your way. They're only interested in their own version of reality, and that's not something you can change. Instead of trying to convince them, focus on maintaining your peace. Your energy is valuable, your time is precious, and you don't need to waste either one on someone who's not interested in hearing you. The more you engage, the more you'll find yourself trapped in their world, a world where nothing you say or do is ever enough, and that's not a place where you want to be. So the next time a narcissist tries to pull you into their game, remember, you don't have to play. Walk away from the argument and walk toward your peace. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. Your worth isn't determined by their approval. And the more you let go of trying to convince them, the more you'll find your own power. Here's something that's crucial to understand. Boundaries aren't just a nice idea, they're a necessity. They're not something you can afford to ignore or delay, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist. Boundaries are your way of protecting yourself, your space, and your emotional health. And when it comes to a narcissist, if you don't define your boundaries, they will gladly do it for you. And they'll do it in a way that serves their needs, not yours. It's easy to overlook boundaries when you're in the midst of a relationship, especially when it's someone who can be charming, persuasive, or even manipulative. A narcissist will make you feel guilty for wanting your own space or standing up for yourself. They'll twist your intentions, making it seem like you're being selfish or unreasonable. But here's the truth: boundaries are not selfish. In fact, they're one of the most self-respecting things you can do. When you allow a narcissist to constantly push past your limits, whether it's emotionally, physically, or mentally, you're telling them that their needs are more important than your own. You're teaching them that your comfort, your peace, and your well-being don't matter as much as their desire to control or manipulate the situation. And if you don't stop that cycle, it only deepens. Over time, you begin to lose a sense of yourself. You forget what it feels like to be fully in control of your own life because you're constantly trying to accommodate someone else's behavior, someone else's desires, and someone else's expectations. But the moment you start defining your boundaries, you begin to reclaim your power. Setting a boundary isn't about rejecting someone, it's about affirming your own sense of self. It's about saying, I have the right to protect my energy, my peace, and my truth. I have the right to say no when something doesn't feel right, even if it makes you uncomfortable. The key here is clarity. Boundaries are not about being vague or passive. They are clear, firm, and communicated with confidence. A narcissist will test them, of course. They'll try to push your limits and see if they can get away with disrespecting your boundaries. But this is where you have to stand strong. Your boundaries are not negotiable, and they shouldn't be flexible for someone who doesn't respect them. Think about it like this. Imagine you're at a fence and you're standing on one side, trying to have a conversation with someone on the other side. Fence is your boundary. If that person keeps trying to cross the line, whether by pushing, yelling, or manipulating, you have to step back and say, no, that's not okay. You can't come closer unless you respect my space. It's not a fight, it's not a battle. It's simply a statement of where you stand. But here's where it gets tricky. Narcissists thrive on manipulation, and they love to twist your boundaries. They'll make you feel guilty for asserting yourself, questioning whether you're being too harsh, too rigid, or too demanding. They may even try to convince you that you're overreacting or that you're just being unreasonable. And in the beginning, it might work. You might begin to doubt yourself, question whether you're being too difficult or sensitive. But here's the secret: you're not difficult, you're clear, you're not sensitive, you're discerning. And there is nothing wrong with having high standards for how you expect to be treated. There is nothing wrong with expecting respect. If someone cares about you, if someone values you, they will respect your boundaries. And if they don't, that's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. What happens when you don't set boundaries is that you become a willing participant in their manipulation. You may start letting little things slide, like ignoring your own needs or constantly accommodating their behavior. Over time, it becomes harder to see where you end and where they begin. Your boundaries blur, and you start living according to their narrative, not your own. But when you begin to set firm, clear boundaries, something shifts. You no longer tolerate disrespect. You no longer allow your needs to be ignored. You teach others how to treat you, not with words, but with actions. Your peace becomes non-negotiable, your happiness becomes a priority, and when you set these boundaries, you may find that people either start to respect you more, or they begin to pull away. And if they pull away, that's not a loss, that's a gift. Because the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries and understand that setting them isn't about keeping them at arm's length. It's about honoring yourself, and anyone who doesn't respect that, they don't belong in your life. So, the next time a narcissist tries to overstep, remind yourself, It's not selfish to protect your peace. It's essential. Your boundaries are your armor, and without them, you leave yourself vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable to manipulation, you lose sight of your own worth. Protect your boundaries like you protect your life, because in a sense, they are your life. Here's where it gets tricky. You can't fight narcissism with narcissism. You can't battle manipulation with more manipulation, and you can't reclaim your peace by stooping to their level. The more you engage in their drama, the more you'll find yourself pulled into their chaotic, exhausting cycle. The more you try to beat them at their own game, the more you're giving them exactly what they want. Your energy, your focus, your time. Here's the secret: you don't need to play their game at all. In fact, the moment you stop playing is the moment you start winning. Think about it. When a narcissist tries to control you, they do it by creating confusion. They twist your words, distort the truth, and put you on the defensive. Every conversation becomes a battleground where there's no right answer, no win. You're always trying to prove yourself, always trying to show that you're the rational one, that you're the one who's in the right. And yet, no matter what you do, it never seems to work. You can't beat them at their own game because their game isn't about logic or reason. It's about control. It's about power. So what do? You stop playing. You don't need to engage in their manipulation. You don't need to defend yourself, explain yourself, or try to change their mind. Instead, you rise above it. You reclaim your peace by disengaging from the chaos. This doesn't mean you shut down or walk away from the relationship entirely. It means you stop letting them dictate the terms of every interaction. You stop reacting and you start responding with calm and clarity. When they try to pull you into an argument, you don't get angry. You don't try to prove your point. You simply say, "I hear you, but I don't need to argue about this." You stop letting their manipulation draw you in. It's not about being passive, it's about being intentional with your energy. When you refuse to get caught up in their drama, you're taking away their power to control you. They may try to escalate things to turn the heat up, but you remain calm, centered, and in control of yourself. The more you resist the urge to fight fire with fire, the more you start to notice something incredible. You start to notice that their power over you diminishes. They may throw their tantrums, try to manipulate you with guilt or shame, but you no longer feel the need to respond. You stop reacting emotionally, and when you stop reacting emotionally, their ability to push your buttons fades, but this takes practice. It's not easy to stop reacting when you've been conditioned to fight back, to prove yourself to be right. It's hard to stay calm in the face of someone who's trying to make you feel small. But the more you practice, the more you start to realize something important. You're not losing by not engaging. You're winning by not letting their chaos control your emotional state. This is where the real shift happens. When you stop trying to control the situation or change their mind, you take your power back. You stop needing their approval, their validation, their recognition. You start living your life on your terms, without needing anyone else to dictate how you should feel or what you should do. And when you stop playing their game, you start winning. Not because you've defeated them, but because you've learned to rise above it all. The truth is, you don't need to prove yourself to anyone who doesn't see your value. You don't need to engage in someone else's manipulation just to feel heard or understood. Your voice is valuable on its own, and you don't need to convince anyone of that. The more you stop engaging with someone who is emotionally unavailable, the more you free up space for the people who genuinely value you and respect your worth. And here's the powerful part. By not playing their game, you stop giving them the emotional energy they crave. Narcissists thrive on reaction. They thrive on getting you to care enough to fight back, to prove them wrong, to engage in the battle. But when you withdraw that energy, when you stop responding in ways that feed their ego, they begin to lose interest. They no longer have the power to pull you into their drama, and suddenly, they don't seem quite as powerful anymore. In the end, the most powerful thing you can do when faced with a narcissist is not to fight them. It's to walk away from the game entirely. You don't have to win every battle, you just have to stop playing. When you're dealing with a narcissist, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeking validation from them. After all, they can be charming, persuasive, and make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. In the beginning, they will shower you with attention, make you feel like you've found someone who truly understands you, someone who values you for who you are. But here's the catch, that validation is never truly genuine. It's conditional. It's based on how well you conform to their expectations, their desires, and their vision of who you should be. And the moment you stop fulfilling that role, the moment you stop feeding their ego, the validation disappears, and you're left feeling small, unworthy, and invisible. The key to reclaiming your peace, your confidence, and your sense of self is to stop seeking validation from someone who is only interested in using it as a tool for control. When you stop relying on someone else to tell you that you matter, that you're worthy, or that you're good enough, you stop giving them power over you. You stop giving them the ability to define your worth. And that is when you truly start to take back control of your life. The truth is, we all want to feel validated. We all want to know that the people around us see us, appreciate us, and recognize our value. But here's the problem: when you place yourself, worth in the hands of someone who doesn't truly care about you, someone who only sees you as a tool for their own gain, you will always be left wanting. Validation from a narcissist is fleeting. It's a carrot on a stick, always just out of reach, and the more you chase it, the more you lose yourself in the process. Think about it this way: when a narcissist gives you validation, it's not because they genuinely appreciate you. It's because they want something from you. They want to keep you hooked, keep you coming back for more, keep you in their orbit. They know exactly what to say to make you feel special, to make you feel like you're the only person who matters. But in the end, that validation is hollow. It's not real. It's not about you. It's about them. And when you stop seeking their validation, when you stop trying to prove your worth to someone who will never truly value you, you free yourself from that cycle. You free yourself from the constant need to perform, to please, to appease. You stop looking for approval in places where it will never come, and instead you start to find that approval within yourself. The power of self-validation is incredible. It's the foundation of true confidence. When you validate yourself, when you recognize your own worth, you no longer need someone else's approval to feel good about who you are. You stop waiting for someone to tell you that you're enough, because you already know it. You stop looking for someone else's opinion to define your value, because you've already set your own standards. This doesn't mean you isolate yourself or shut others out. It doesn't mean you stop valuing the relationships that truly matter. It simply means that you no longer place your sense of worth in the hands of people who don't deserve that power. You stop handing over your sense of self to someone who is only interested in using you for their own gain. And that is when you start to truly find peace. When you stop seeking validation from the narcissist, you also stop giving them the ability to control your emotions. Their opinions, their words, their actions no longer have the power to shake your confidence or make you doubt yourself. You stop allowing them to define your reality, and in doing so, you start to see things more clearly. You start to see them for who they really are, not the charming, persuasive figure who once made you feel special, but the manipulative, self-serving individual who is only interested in their own agenda. The more you validate yourself, the less you need them, and the less you need them, the less power they have over you. It's a simple but profound shift. You stop living for their approval and start living for your own truth, your own values, and your own sense of purpose. And when you make that shift, you begin to take back control of your life. You begin to live on your own terms, not on theirs. So, the next time you feel that pull to seek validation from someone who doesn't truly see you, remind yourself of this. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You are enough exactly as you are without their permission, and once you realize that, you will no longer give them the power to control you. You will stand tall, grounded in your own self-worth, and nothing they say or do will be able to shake that foundation. You might think that cutting someone off completely is an extreme step. It feels harsh, and it's not something that comes naturally to most people. After all, we're wired for connection, we want to be liked, and we fear conflict. But here's the reality: when you're dealing with a narcissist, sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing you can do for your own well-being. When a narcissist tries to control you, They create a dynamic where you're constantly giving. You give your time, your energy, your emotions, and in return, you receive manipulation, guilt, and maybe a few moments of fleeting praise. Over time, this dynamic becomes toxic. You become exhausted, drained, and eventually lose sight of who you are. You stop living for yourself and start living to meet their needs, to appease them, to avoid the chaos they bring. And that's when you realize the only way to regain control of your life is to stop feeding into the cycle. Sometimes the only way to break free is to walk away. This is not an easy thing to do. Walking away from a narcissist, especially if you've been in a relationship with them for a long time, feels like you're leaving behind a piece of yourself. They've been a part of your life, maybe a big part, and cutting them off can feel like losing your identity, your history, or even your sense of purpose. But here's what you have to understand. Leaving them doesn't mean you're losing anything valuable. It means you're finally regaining what you lost, your sense of self. It's hard because narcissists are often skilled at making you feel indispensable. They make you believe that without them, you wouldn't be able to survive. They feed on your dependency, making you feel like they're the only one who truly understands you, the only one who can make you feel whole. They twist the truth, they manipulate your emotions, and they convince you that if you leave, you'll have nothing left. But the truth is far different. The reality is, when you stay, you're losing yourself. You're sacrificing your peace, your happiness, and your well-being in exchange for a fleeting sense of validation that is always conditional, always temporary. The hardest part of walking away is the fear. The fear of what will happen next. The fear of being alone. The fear of facing the reality that the person you trusted is not who they said they were. But walking away doesn't mean you're abandoning your life or your future. It means you're choosing to take control of your destiny. You're choosing to honor your own needs, your own peace, your own happiness. And when you do that, you begin to see just how much energy, time, and focus you were giving to someone who was never truly invested in your well-being. You begin to see that all of those things you thought you were missing, the approval, the validation, the sense of being loved, they were never truly yours to begin with. The moment you walk away, something profound happens. You reclaim your power. You take back the control you gave away, and you stop letting someone else define your worth. You stop living according to their rules, according to their manipulations, according to their version of reality. You create space for something new, something better. A life where you are in control, where your happiness is no longer dependent on someone who is emotionally unavailable and self-serving. Now, walking away doesn't mean you do it in anger or bitterness. It doesn't mean you have to go out with a dramatic confrontation. Often, the best way to walk away from a narcissist is quietly, decisively, and without fanfare. You simply stop feeding into the cycle. You stop responding to their manipulations, stop giving them access to your energy. You set your boundaries, and when they refuse to respect them, you remove yourself from the situation altogether. And here's the beauty of it. Once you've walked away, you'll begin to feel a sense of peace that you haven't felt in a long time. You'll realize that the weight you've been carrying, the emotional exhaustion, the constant uncertainty, the self-doubt, was all because of the narcissist's influence. Without them, you can breathe again. Without them, you can reconnect with who you are, with your purpose, with your sense of self-worth. You may be tempted to second-guess yourself, to wonder if you did the right thing, especially when they try to reel you back in. Narcissists are masters at making you feel guilty for leaving, making you believe that it's your fault, that you're the one who's being unreasonable. But don't let their words sway you. Don't let them convince you that you're making a mistake. You're not. Walking away is the most courageous thing you can do. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you are the one who gets to decide who stays in your life and who doesn't. The truth is, you deserve peace. You deserve a life where you're not constantly walking on eggshells, where you don't have to second-guess every word you say or every decision you make. You deserve to be around people who see you for who you really are and who love you without trying to control you. And the only way to get there is to let go of the toxic relationships that are holding you back. When you walk away, you make room for something better, something more fulfilling, something that aligns with your true self. So, take that step, walk away from the narcissist, and start living for yourself again. You'll find your peace, you'll find your power, and you'll realize that the only approval you need is your own.